Good evening. Thank you for everyone attending this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel on Thursday the 5th of March 2026. I'm Deborah Platt. This is Arjun Singh, my Deputy Chair, and I'll be chairing this meeting. When speaking, please do not obstruct your mouth to enable lip reading or the use of closed captions. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if alarms sound, please exit the way that you came in. And please ensure that all your mobiles are switched off or on silent. Lovely. So I've got apologies from Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hilton said he might be a little bit late, and I believe Councillor Bradley's in the corridor. Have we got any others? No. Right. Okay, so we've got Councillor Howarth, Gail Wotton and Caroline Wolfenden, who's here for different aspects of the agenda. Hi. No problem. So item 1 is declarations of any interest. And any members got any interest they want to raise here? If not, raise it when it crops up. No? Excellent. Item 2 is the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 4th of December, which was my birthday. Pages 3 to 6. And also is attached the action monitoring log, which we discussed just to keep a track of all the items, and that's pages 3 to 12. Are there any issues to raise from the minutes from the last meeting? Yep. Sorry, Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chair. Just in terms of that bishop, there's a bit at the back there, surely additional data, that forms part of the minutes. I just wanted to clarify, there's a couple of clarifications on that.
Okay, I don't know whether I can answer them, but it depends what...
I was thinking, either Peter or Alistair probably would be the best place to... So on the additional economic data, it says about, in terms of job growth and business growth as well. So in terms of the figures there, it says it's been about 0.2% growth in jobs, and also businesses are down at about 4,490 2025, so falling back a bit. In terms of that, I just wanted just a bit of clarification of, have we got a strategy in terms of about growth, or is it, or the figures, so first one is there a strategy for growth to try and improve that, or is it because the fact that Chorley tends to be used as a bit of a commuter town, so where more people work in Chorley, outside Chorley than do within, whether that skews the figures?
If we need a more fuller response, we could put, if you could put that in an email, but I'm not sure if Councillor Bradley wants to take that or... Yeah.
It's on the minutes as additional economic data. It's on
which page, please?
Yeah, page 8.
Page 8. And it's the stuff to do with...
It's jobs. So it's the third and fourth bullet. So it looks like we've been a bit static over the last few years. But I was just saying whether there is a push to try and improve those figures, or whether it's the fact that...
Right on the right papers here. Page 8, which starts off other options because they're rejected.
The agenda item 2. That's the minutes. It forms the back bit of the minutes.
There were 3 additional documents that came out after the meeting. It's one of those.
Follow on in it.
I think it's page 8 of the document as opposed to the agenda document, page 8. So it might be page 10 by the looks of it, possibly.
The economy ones, the jobs.
Yeah, the additional economic data, the jobs and the business ones. So
right, so 45,000 essentially little growth of 0.2 annually since 2011, below 0.4% across Lancashire, 1.5% regionally. Yeah, some of that's... So, and then the businesses peaked in 2022 before falling back in 2025, which is 5% fall. Some of this is around the stuff that we looked at after COVID. The jobs was around, were the people choosing to be economically inactive. And we think there has been a bit of that.
Yeah.
There's actually a drift back the other way now. So we are moving more towards what the regional average is. And we've discussed this at previous meetings, Chair, where we said, why was Chorley seem to have a lot of people who suddenly became economically inactive after COVID? Was that a lifestyle choice, and what was it? I don't think we ever got to the bottom of it, and therefore we've been doing things to try to provide more jobs, but also to do things to understand what's caused it. I don't think we ever found out ultimately what caused it, and it's actually regularising itself more back. And I think that was also to do with the businesses peaking in 2022, which seems odd when you, but I think that's a lag in the reporting. So it probably peaked in 2020, 21. Then we had COVID, and then it dropped back after COVID. But recently, it's now picked up again. So I think it's the wave and where the wave was. So there is nothing particular that we've come in the analysis we've done. I don't think I'm looking at Caroline here that we could ever get to the bottom of what caused that dip when other people weren't dipping.
Yeah.
But it could just be that we're all dipping at different times for whatever something that's going on.
Do we factor in, like, for myself, for example, I don't work in Chorley, I work outside. So I assume there's a lot of people, because one of the reasons why I moved up from down south to choose Chorley was the fact it was a really good place to live for communication links. So I just wonder whether those figures are a bit distorted, the fact that we get a lot of our population.
It can be, and that's why one of the things we measure through you, Chair, again, one of the things we measure is workplace median earnings for people who work in Chorley, but workplace median earnings for people who live in Chorley, which is totally different, and the people who live in Chorley is far higher than those who work in Chorley. Yeah. So there is all that kind of information, isn't there? And again, we've focused some of our grant programmes on getting more people to live and work in Chorley, deliberately to get some of those earning rates up of people who work in the borough. That has happened again as a result of COVID and people working at home. They're no longer based, but in terms of registering on surveys where they're based, they're probably based where their company they work for is based, as opposed to where they actually work, which will be at home. So I have a friend who works for the Co-op who are in the offices in Manchester city centre, but he's never there. Yeah. So, like I said, it's about a trend, isn't it? So the trend dipped. It dipped around COVID, and we've never got to the bottom of really what caused that dip. What we've sort of seen recently, like I said, is more of a return to the norm, whereas others have dipped afterwards. It may be just a lagging reporting. We don't know.
Yeah, I think just in terms of this sheet here, probably isn't the most helpful, I think, because you're trying to convey a lot of information. There's a lot more behind stuff like that. So you could read that and go, ooh, but
statistics and damn lies, isn't it? Ultimately, and I know Caroline's whole world is based on statistical analysis, and she's going to be doing a lot of it in a minute. But sometimes things just happen, and you don't really understand why. Yeah. And that's why we've changed. We have changed some of the economic measures we're doing. I mean, the one I like best is the GVA ones, but they're quite a blunt tool, aren't they? Yeah. And again, GVA can mask other problems. So Chorley does quite well on the GVA point, but it says recovery in recent years. So I think he's looking at the suite of things and then also bearing that against what's actually the anecdotal responses. Because what was interesting for us was we had a downturn in economic activity, but we didn't see a rise in claimants for benefits or anything like that. Yeah. So those people are sorting themselves out. Yeah. But if they want to change their lifestyle and work like that, we're not there to dictate that. That's what the people want to do. Yeah, cool. Thanks for the clarification. There's just obviously a lot more behind those. We can give you more data, but we can't tell you the reasons why. Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Are there any other queries about the minutes, or maybe their accuracy? I can never say that. Accuracy. No. Okay. So if there's no issues, can we agree the minutes to be an accurate record? Great. And to note the action monitoring log. Yeah. Brilliant. Do you need a proposer and a seconder?
Yes, please.
Can I have a Russ? Seconder? Yeah? Councillor Hayden? Yeah. Seconding, lovely. So item 3 is the performance focus for Property and Planning Directorate, which is Q3, pages 7 to 24, and Officer Gail Wotton is here to present that paper. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, Councillor Platt. Good evening, members. So I'm delighted to present this to report to you about my directorate, Property and Planning. There's a wealth of information in there, and I'm sure you've got some questions for me, so I'm more than happy to answer those. It's a busy directorate. I'm blessed with 4 fantastic heads of service who you'll know as well, but you can see in the report how much we've achieved over the past year. I'm also very grateful for having 4 portfolio holders as well, who I hope I support in their aspirations as well. So just running through the report, I know you will have read it. Paragraphs 10 kind of gives you a bit of a flavour of the responsibilities that we have. It is quite wide-ranging: climate change, biodiversity, running a market, running some supported housing units, delivering major developments, managing our assets, and then obviously the planning function as well, with all the joy that brings. In terms of performance so far, so paragraph 11, you can see that there's just one indicator that is below target, which I can come back to shortly, and then paragraph 12 explains that there are 13 business plan projects, most of which have been rated as green or complete, just a couple that are rated as amber, and one that's not started. So paragraph 13 gives you an explanation as to what those are and to why. Paragraphs 15 to 32 gives me an opportunity to talk about all the things that we have done in this year, and again, happy to answer any questions from there. Just picking out a few. It's very difficult to pick out just a few things, but a couple of things spring to mind. It was a little while ago now, but from the Chorley Planning Service, we were pleased to be de-designated, so off special measures, because the quality of our decision making had improved according to government's metrics. We've also made great strides with our Central Lancashire Local Plan, which I believe started about 7 years ago, so we're at a really advanced stage on that and moving closer to the end, she says, with everything crossed. We've got really good reports in terms of footfall for Chorley Market and improvements that have been made there. If you've been recently, you'll have seen the new sort of bench and seating area that we've installed, as well as works to the bus station and support to our tenants at Cotswold House. And then from our sort of property and development teams, we've introduced a new property maintenance framework, which doesn't sound amazing, but actually really is, in terms of how quickly we can respond to issues that we've got across our estate, getting repairs and improvements done, as well as all of the major projects that we're delivering, and I'm sure there'll be some questions on some of those as well. Paragraphs 30 to 40 just run you through the financial position. I would just point out this is where some of the sort of names get they're a bit different, aren't they? So we talk about property, we talk about major projects, and then we talk about planning, which actually includes 2 services in one. And then paragraph 41 talks about the corporate strategy indicators, and this is where there's one that's below target, which is the number of affordable homes delivered, which I can just quickly address now. That's simply, well, it is tracking lower than previously and tracking lower than the annual target. It looks worse here because we report it on a 6-monthly basis, so we don't have up-to-date figures for the end of this quarter, so should be much higher than 31 by the time we get to the end of the year figures as well. And then paragraph 44 onwards is where we've got the local indicators, and we are going through a process of reviewing our local indicators now as part of our business planning process, so you'll see some changes to those next year, particularly around things to do with our building control service, so we're proposing to put in some additional indicators around the speed that we respond to building control applications, and also the same for our planning enforcement teams as well. And then I think the final section is around those corporate strategy projects. So there's nine total projects, 5 rated green. 1 is amber, which is the delivering of all seasons refurbishment, and it's amber because of the timescale, the sort of implications knock on. It doesn't mean that we are on site doing the roof work now, as I'm sure you'll be aware, but I'm sure you'll also be aware, with construction projects, these things often do slip in terms of timing. So I hope that's sort of sufficient enough in terms of introducing the report, Chair, but I'm happy to answer any questions, obviously, with my 2 portfolio holders.
Excellent, thank you, Gail. Can I invite anybody for questions? Yeah, Councillor Hayden.
Hi, Gail. Paragraph 48 talks about the percentage of voids on Market Walk, and it's reflecting the changing nature of the retail business, and as a snapshot in time. Is there any, and further on in the report, it does say about there is, steps in place to try and recover that. But given, the state of the retail market at the minute, is there anything that you can think of that will replace retail and use those units for other ways that will still generate some income?
Yeah, I think it was 4 empty units, which is why it was giving lead to that vacancy rate that we've got. Now all 4 of those have got retail offers to in place and the agreements in place to fill them. So what we're talking about is gaps. So, and you can see, I think there's a comment in one of the clauses about the overspend on because a couple of units went empty suddenly because people went bust, and the main one was what they called, and there's a couple of big units that went, and there's one of the bakeries as well that weren't going, and then came back and did a rent-free period and stuff like that. So there's 2 things. One is we have considered about taking, and we've had lots of offers for people who are effectively non-retail. So, for example, the NHS would like to do but they did it during COVID. They did an injection centre there, and that was quite good for a short term, but it's not a retail use. So there's a question, when you start to take retail units out, you lose that critical mass, and then people don't come to there to go shopping, they go there for something different. Now, our view at the moment is we want to try and keep that as a retail, 100% retail. To do that, you've got to accept that sometimes the market causes you problems and you get dislocation, and therefore retail is a precarious business at best of times. But Market Walk, compared to what other retail lets at the moment, is actually quite full. It has little peaks and troughs again, but it overall it washes its face, and it does a very good return, and therefore that's why it's still worth the money more. That's what we bought it for. So if we then depart from that and start doing something else, the question is then, do we sort of dilute that offer, and then do people stop coming? It's an option, and the main options will be 2 things. It will be hospitality, and we focus on hospitality in the bit that is hospitality, which is the bit up around Calico, the theatre, and what's going to be Nando's, and they're moving in. So that's going to be helpful to sustaining Market Walk long term, because it's a major, large, multiple, successful food offer. And we've done very well to get it, because although they've been very hard to deal with in terms of, not hard work to deal with in terms of just not talking to you for periods because they go off and do their own thing. That's the only way they've been hard work. The other bit then is do you look at, so you've got leisure options, which is food and beverage and all that stuff, or do you do something else which would be more office or clinic-y kind of things? And at the moment, we've resisted that until we can fully exhaust the retail options available. I think this is going to be interesting with the new Civic Square development, because we've got additional retail and food and beverage space coming in over there. And there was talk about some of the redevelopment sites here that there would be food and beverage units as well. So we've got to keep an eye on where's Chorley going. At the moment, we're protecting our asset by keeping it as retail, because the risk is if we change it to, because what might happen is we put other uses in there now, and then other food and beverage units open, people move out of Market Walk, and it leaves a real problem. So I think for now, we'd rather wait and see and watch and take that view in due course when we know more about the long-term future of the town centre. And that's the best answer I can give you. So we've thought about it. At the moment, we're not keen on going down that route, and it would also change the structure around things like service charges as well. Because obviously, well, every retail, you can divvy up the service charge generally based on square footage and how much space you're taking up. And some businesses have come to us and said, we want to change units, we want to go to a smaller unit because the unit we're in is too big and we're not trading well enough. But then other units, people are coming to us and saying we'd like a bigger unit. So it's a little bit, you've got to suck it and see what your mix is like at a point in time. And the other thing has been that we have had, post-COVID, quite a drive on people coming back to renegotiate rents. That's slowed down as well, from my understanding. And again, the rents thing goes up and down, and that's not a market that we can control, because that's based on and it tends to be the national multiples who've come back and renegotiated. So Iceland will come back and renegotiate all their rents across the country, and they're quite robust about how they do it. So what they say is, this is what we're paying elsewhere, this is what, you know, we reckon it's worth, that's it, and we're not paying another penny more. At that point, you think, do I want a big empty unit? Because I haven't got anybody else to go in there straight away. What you then do is sign up to a deal with them with a break clause in a year or two's time, and then revisit it, hopefully when it's a better position and we can have a more favourable option for ourselves. This is the delights of running retail. I haven't thought I know anything about retail, but it's a very odd way of working, and you've in a way got to, I won't say not care, you've got to not just react to the latest thing that's going on. You've got to keep a sort of trend and a maintenance, and you'll see that in other shopping centres. That why is that unit empty? That unit's only empty because they're just waiting for the right tenant to come along. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah. If I could just add 2 additional points. One is that we use a team of commercial agents as well who do work across the region. So they, you know, in terms of the knowledge and the comparison of what's going on elsewhere. But I do think we are blessed in that it's often not difficult to find somebody who wants to move in terms of a retail. So it is a snapshot in time. So my point is that it's at that point in time, and then, you know, as Councillor Bradley said, they've been filled now. And then the other point is that through the town centre team, we do track the types of businesses, the types of retail that we've got. So, you know, how many hairdressers, how many barbers, those kind of things to try and see.
And we asked last night, didn't we, what the trends are. So every 2-3 months we get told this is how many we've got of these, but what's the trend? Are we losing something in particular? Are we gaining things? What's the perception is you're getting lots of coffee shops, lots of nail bars, and lots of hairdressers, and lots of pubs. That's the vibe, but the evidence base suggests that we're also picking up 1 or 2 of these other things as well, or losing 1 or 2 of those other things, and that, I think, is we're just looking at our refresh of our town centre master plan, but we're trying to get the development work done so we can then have a plan going forward once that's all been done, to say we need to focus on getting some of these or not getting more of those, and that's the bit that is the next stage after we've done the development, isn't it? Sorry to jump in there, but and that was what was interesting last night, because what we said was, could we see a bit of a trend over the last couple of years about what's shifted, rather than just anecdotally what we all think is happening.
Excellent. I bet you didn't expect all that information, did you?
Luckily, I had town centre team last night, so we're all very genned up on it.
You're all genned up. Right, run out of time now. Councillor Green.
Just, I think it's just for probably to Gail through to Terry, I think, just going back to the number of affordable delivery of homes, how much control do we actually have over that number?
How much control was your question?
Over the annual target. So we've got 75 target and we're on for 31. But how much direct control do we have as a council over that? And how much is it dependent on the developers and the like?
Well, it's totally dependent on the rate of work that's actually produced by developers, builders across. One thing I would point out is these stats. If I'm right in thinking, that would be a winter quarter, wouldn't it, up to the end of December. So I would expect completions to be, shall we say, fewer targeted in that period. The key in my sense of answering your question as accurately as I can is to say there's so many areas that this would depend on. Planning is one of them. How many applications are we going to actually accept? Or how many are we going to actually turn down because we want Chorley to remain a green and pleasant space? So there's so many factors involved. Certainly none of the officers involved in this have got the ability to actually push developers to complete more. But at the same time, the actual volume that we can expect can be greater if, for example, we have a vibrant planning system.
Is that a realistic target? Is it realistic to have a target then? Just because you can get hit over the head for something that's totally outside your control.
Sorry, Councillor Hilton's desperate to jump in here. Go on.
Are we working? Yes, we appear to be working, right. It is a disappointing figure in terms of affordable homes being delivered, but as Terry says, the way in which it's measured isn't sort of the most up to date at the moment. We're still below 50%, and that is worse than last year. But given the work on the current local plan and the new affordable units potentially about to be permitted, including those in their own council's own schemes, I'm not particularly concerned moving forward. I think it will be deliverable. There are changes to the NPPF as well in terms of density, etc. as well. So I think that will change the. It'll mandate the developers to actually build in high density. So there's no reason that they wouldn't be looking at affordable homes there. But yeah, it is a disappointing metric, but moving forward, I do think it will get better. And like I say, as Terry said, the reporting of it's slightly out of sync at the moment.
It's disappointing, but it's not really within our control. That's the thing. You know, the stuff when we've done on Tatton Gardens and stuff, I can see, you know, that's something we've had control and put those in place. Whereas the likes of you're requiring a builder to come in and do it. Yeah. So if this happens to be a year where nobody wants to build or whatever because economic circumstances, we can get hit over the head with, you know, red when it's nothing to do with your officers.
Councillor Bradley, did you want to jump in?
The figure I think is predicated on 30% of larger sites, which is our policy. So if we put a lower figure in, we're saying straight away our policy is not going to get accepted. Now we know, people who've been on planning know that developers come back and argue viability, don't they? But if we actually have a target that's less than what the 30% calculation of our large sites is, you're sort of almost saying, before you even start, we've given up on this aspiration. I personally would keep the target in to remind us that planning committee should be enforcing 30% on all larger sites. Right. We've also, to remedy this, there are some sites that have gone through recently with 100% social housing, which would distort this the other way. So a little bit, we're not in direct control, but we have an influence, and that's about reminding us of that influence.
Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, it is part of our planning policy that we do try and enforce that as best we can. But like Councillor Bradley's just made my point, there are sites that have just gone through that are 100% affordable housing, and I think it's really important that members of the planning committee are mindful of that decision rather than trying to fight that. I think it's certainly the direction that the Labour group feel we should be going in. So thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Green, are you finished with that question?
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you. I won't mention, obviously, I won't mention that one, but we all know how we all feel about it, but I won't mention it. Okay. Obviously, given what Russ's question was, can we not then add that to the report to show, obviously, post-December numbers, what's been approved, what could be built in the next couple of years, just to add some context to that, so I feel that would be...
Just going back to that, the metric we look at is what's actually been delivered, I believe.
Yes, it is. If I can just jump in there, I think we are pulling every single lever that we possibly can do, and I think you can see by the keenness of a few of us to speak on this, it is something that we do we do attack from almost every single angle. As you say, we deliver our own affordable units, which is fantastic and makes me very proud to work for this council for doing that. We also are progressing our local plan. So as Councillor Hilton and Councillor Bradley have said, we do require developers to start with that 30%. The way we can do that is that we work through what we call a viability assessment. So we crunch the numbers that we think developers are going to come up and say, oh, that's too costly for me to do that. I'm going to have to, argue down the affordable housing. By keeping our viability evidence up to date, which actually also helps by having a development delivery team also in the same directorate, because we can sense check some of those numbers. We can say, well, actually, no, we've done the maths as well, and we know that 30% is viable on these developments in Chorley. And then the only additional point I'd make about the target is that the target of 75 is less than what our need is. So we know what our need is in relation to the housing waiting list. So I would agree that keeping a target keeps us all focused on those people who are in need. the other point I would make that Councillor Howarth and I have spoken about at length is what is the definition of affordable? But I think if we got into that point, we'll be here until the wee hours.
Yeah, I just feel that obviously just to stop residents without the background knowledge just reading it and thinking, well, they're not delivering it. Just a paragraph, a footnote underneath just stating this is what's been approved, and it obviously it's not been built yet, would just add a bit of context to that if that can be added.
We have that information through the local plan, so we know it. We do know for every even market home, we do know, I mean, Councillor Hilton's right, it is about it being delivered, but we do speak to developers about when sites are going to come forward. So taking that with a pinch of salt, we have to put that into a document through the local plan so we know exactly how many should be coming through the system. We won't count them until they are actually built though.
Yeah, and the risk for counting them beforehand is quite often developers they go to it and say, yeah, of course we build 30%, and then through the development they reduce the number down. So you're right, we put just in a footnote that says these have been approved, but actually what's delivered is something different, and that's because we have the battle as the scheme's being built out, but not the point.
Yeah, there's a chasm between what's improved and what actually gets delivered and finished and ticked off, if you know what I mean. Because obviously sometimes some things look like they're going to start, and then they just disappear off the radar. So probably probably best just to keep asking and getting the updates, I think. Did you have another question, Councillor Singh?
I think.
No? Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Totally unrelated to that last conversation. I think it's a great report. There's some fantastic progress in there, so well done to all the teams in that. It does read really, really well. I've only got one question, which is on page 10, paragraph 13. It talks about a procurement challenge to do with the extra care security contract. And I know you might not be able to go into any detail on that, but I'm just wondering if there's any lessons learned or anything that we can improve on to maybe stop that happening in the future.
I'm just desperately trying to rack my brains for the detail of it. It was a minorish point in terms of the process that we were picked up on by somebody who didn't win, as you would imagine. So we're working through that. I don't think it points to anything systemic, though, which I think is your point or your concern would be. And I think actually there was, it was a risk-based decision about whether to rerun it again. I think it was the right thing to do to rerun the procurement again. And we were in a position where we were able to extend existing contracts because this is about the security and concierge at Primrose and Tatton here, but also extending it to South Ribble and the new Jubilee Gardens there. So we were able, from a Chorley perspective, we were able to keep our sort of existing processes in place while we then re-procured that process.
To put my spin on it, and I was made aware of the challenge, and the challenge was wide and varied, so it wasn't around one specific point, but the decision to rerun was based on, if we're going to get challenged, we want to be making sure we are fully compliant in every point, because obviously this party weren't successful, but they were exercised about lots of areas, so highlight the area that possibly wasn't fully correct, a technical sort of matter, and redo it, because that's the safest route to do that. And I agree, it wasn't. I didn't get the vibe it was systemic. It was just if nobody had ever challenged it, it would have run through and nobody would have spotted it. It was just when you're under that level of scrutiny, because this party was particularly disgruntled about every last thing, because I think they felt they were the obvious people to then run it, and they weren't, and they were out on lots and lots of things. But because that one wasn't right, to cover the council in the future, rerun it, and we had the ability to prolong the existing stuff. So it's annoying, but sometimes in procurement you have to redo these things because you'll pay for it otherwise, won't you?
Yeah, you will. I do think in this current economic climate that you may get more and more challenges around that as well. So that's my point. If it's nothing systemic, then that's fine. But there's always learning from this, isn't it, to make sure you don't end up in that position again.
In this meeting, Chair, have we reviewed it with audit and and what have you, to see whether there was any learnings from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to go on to say is that we've got a series of training as officers in relation to both procurement, but also through managing contracts as well. So we do have quite an active procurement team that do help us with those procurements. Obviously, there's been recent legislative change as well, particularly around things like VAT. So that's kind of changed our contract procedure rules and the way we procure as well. So we are working through that as well. This was a particular kind of, there was a few points, but a particular point around the specifics of some of the information that was provided that appeared different to different people. But yeah, I don't think it's anything systemic.
I suppose challenge is always good, because if you never got any challenge, you would never revisit some of your points, and then you would sit back and, I don't know, maybe stagnate a little bit. So, yeah, although it causes a lot more work. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah, Councillor Singh.
Just on a couple of questions. Firstly, on agenda page 16, obviously the planning application fees. That's a huge, obviously, variance there, an increase in the fees. Can you just let us know that? I'm assuming these fees will be used to obviously support officers and in order to obviously increase the planning capacity and improve the service delivery. Like, is there any plans in place on how it's going to be used?
Certainly. Well, I'm glad you picked that up, because actually we've done phenomenally well in that. We've brought about 1.16 million into the council in terms of planning fees. The information there doesn't include the income that we've got from the pre-application service, which has been introduced. So there was a predicted income of that of about £18,000, and actually looking at that was the estimated income, and looking at the forecast of the income we're actually getting from it, that's another £56,000. So I think the planning director is performing exceptionally well in terms of the income. This will be brought into the council. Part of it, I'm sure, will be used for planning, but you know, this is money coming into the organisation that we can also repurpose for the things as required. So I think that's a really good thing that we've done there. So I'm really proud of that one. I think we've done particularly well there. So planning is not always the enemy for everybody. We actually do bring in some good things to the organisation. I don't know if you want to add anything, Gail.
Only to say that as much as I would like to ring fence this for the planning department, I don't think our director of finance would allow me to do that. But we have made strides just in terms of the staffing. So we are we've increased our, this is slightly different, but we've increased our planning enforcement team as well. We've doubled essentially from 1 to 2. We've invested in our what we call our planning compliance team as well. So the people that make sure that people are paying Section 106 contributions and the community infrastructure levy as well. We have managed to internally recruit very recently and a promotion. So somebody joined us as an apprentice and is now a senior planning officer within the team. We are looking to appoint somebody, again, more at that kind of junior level. There is a national issue with the planning profession, particularly in the public sector, something that I'm very, very keen to try and see if we can address. So we are looking at introducing as many roles as Neil Holton will allow me to have at that more junior level, get them trained up, and so spending actually some of this money on some of the training and support as well. So we're not allowed, like I say, we're not able to take all of it, but we are using it to invest in the team, particularly recognising the pressure that the planning profession in the public sector particularly is under at the moment.
Yeah, going back to what Gail was saying about planning enforcement there, that is one of the biggest issues for members at the moment. They don't feel that there's enough planning enforcement, whereas we now have 2 dedicated planning enforcement officers. I mean, for example, one of them's going into parish council this evening, talking about the work that we can do, etc. So members are starting to see improvements there. And also we have traditionally had issues with building control as well, as something I wanted to mention. We terrible problems with recruitment and retention. We now have a shared service with South Ribble, and the metrics are increasing more and more there as well. So we've invested into the team. That's brought in more income. not all of that income and scale of say will stay within planning, but it actually strengthens the finances of this organisation overall. So I think that's something we should be proud of, and I'd like to thank all the officers for the hard work they've done on that, because it's a huge achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Councillor Green.
Just a quick point of note, because you've had an apprentice come through to a plan officer. I think we just had apprentice week, but something like maybe worth banging your drum for next round. So I think it's quite positive for showing that people were employing apprentices and bringing them on and developing them to have valuable careers going forward. So yeah, something for the future. I think if you bang a drum on that.
Another thing that the government have done is called the Pathways to Planning, and there's a reference to that in here. So we have got a graduate Pathways to Planning officer in the planning policy team as well. So we are looking, like I say, at ways that we can use external funding, use our funding. I mean, I'm a public sector planner through and through, so I will do whatever I can to make sure that we make sure that the team that we've got, stay, are happy, are healthy, are the well-being is invested in as well, and make sure they've got the resources that they need to do. So we are looking at what we can do, particularly with government support.
That's that most of the questions from everyone. Oh, Councillor Singh.
There's one last one. No, I definitely second you there, Councillor Hilton. Obviously, credit to yourself, Gail, and your team. It's nice to see that obviously investment's being put back into planning. As we all know, planning's not easy, and it's a big department in Chorley at this minute. Second question would just be on agenda page 24, town centre footfall, just to understand obviously the big answer we had this before earlier on today. The town centre footfall. First question is obviously how do you measure everybody walking through? And secondly, obviously, is there anything we are doing in particular to stop people going to like in terms of Middlebrook Retail Park where everything's there in one, Preston Capital Centre? Is there anything we're doing in particular to keep people here?
We shut the motorway.
I'm so glad we attended team last night. So yeah, the number is slightly lower than the target. Because that's 6 million. So it's a 70 or 80,000 below on 6 million. It's a very low percentage. We were given some numbers last night that showed Chorley's footfall was exactly the same this year as last year, as of last night. And the latest numbers we had, this is obviously the previous quarter. Some of that we can't do anything about, so I imagine Chorley has been a bit quieter than it would have been in the last few weeks because it's been pouring down since Christmas. And then the last few days it's got busier again and I had this very conversation with one of the traders last night and said, do you sell a lot of, and obviously they do cakes and pastries and stuff, and I said, do you do well in nice weather or bad weather? And every business is different. We measure footfall in many ways. We do surveys. We use a footfall count from CCTV, so the same camera in the same place, counting how many people go through. Not all 6 million, AJ. We do a sample. You're accounting, you'll get that. You're not going to count all 6 million, are you? Yeah. So we don't have somebody who goes, I've just lost count at 5,800,000. And we also, and Alex loves this, we do a thing where people track phones as well, so we can tell where people are coming from if their phone is accessible to us. Alex locks his down so it isn't, but some of us have very open phones, and it tracks that data, open data, through Wi-Fi and what have you. And that is perfectly legal. As Steve Williams tells us, you can be tracked like that. It doesn't infringe your human rights. You're not identified as a person.
It's anonymised because I questioned
You
this
did question it
previously,
massively, didn't you? Yeah. So we do it in a number of ways to get to it, and we do it the same way every time, and that is an accepted town centre or visitor attraction way of calculating it. Your second point, so the numbers are fairly robust, and if you look at the graph, apart from the COVID dip, Chorley has generally been either slightly going down or slightly going up over the last 15, 20 years. And it went slightly up before COVID, it dropped down, then it's back to where it was, and now it's going along on a plateau. The next question is, what do we do to stop people going elsewhere? We make it as attractive as possible to be in Chorley. And where was that? I was at this event earlier on today. I've been at an event with United Utilities, and I saw somebody who I hadn't seen for a few years, and they said about, he's still doing council in Chorley. And I said, yeah, do you get, and he lives in Norwich now, I said, do you get back to Chorley once? He went, no. He says, but to be fair, you're doing all right, because it's always clean and tidy when I go there. So comments like that, you know what I mean? And I suppose where compared to Bolton it is. So But what we're doing is, and we were told last night, we are trying to attract coach parties into the town, particularly during the week. So the other Wednesday, there was 3 coach parties in Chorley that were brought in, because now we operate the bus station, we have somewhere for them to come in, because under the county regime, they have to pay to go in there, which was ridiculous, because the paying to go in there meant they didn't go in there. So you have an extra 150 people shopping and eating and drinking in the town centre on a Wednesday is a massive boost for our traders. So it's doing things like that. We had an issue with football fans on a Saturday morning who were great for the pubs, but were a deterrent to certain shoppers shopping in the town centre. Those people now go to Chorley Football Club on the coaches instead, which is good for Chorley Football Club because they make money out of it for 2 hours drinking their heads off, but they're not disrupting the rest of the town centre. So there's lots of things we're doing, and there's lots of things that we try to do. Some of them work and some of them don't. But yeah, but ultimately it's about the offer, and that comes all the way back to Christine's point was, do you start to take retail units out? You do, but you want to do it in a planned and organised way. You don't do it taking it out of your core retail centre. Something different. But we're seeing that naturally happen because there is far more hospitality based, and Chorley has now a reputation for being a place where you go to eat and drink and have a day out, as opposed to just purely shopping. But having said that, the covered market is 100% full. The Tuesday market is pretty busy. It's as big as it's been for a long time. So people are coming to shop here. I just think shopping habits are changing and retail are changing. So we do lots of things in lots of different ways to try to get as wide a coverage. But that also means that some of our retailers, particularly the town centre, have to open more. And I had this very discussion after the town team meeting last night with Councillor G, who chairs that meeting, about some of our traders must be making enough money on the hours they're opening because they don't want to open extended hours. But if you have somebody trading, you've got to have a critical number of people who are trading, otherwise it's not worth people coming into Chorley to trade. So our best route to higher footfall is probably sweat our assets better on the Tuesdays and Saturdays, which are the busiest days in Chorley, and a little bit more on the Thursdays and Fridays than trying to get a whole new cohort to come in on a Sunday. Does that make sense?
I suppose those points also carry forward when you've got events on, such as your light switch-ons and your Santa and things like that, because obviously if you have a light switch on and all the shops are shut, they're only coming for the light switch on. Would it be great if you could do both?
And we had a report back from Totally Locally, who run the Christmas light switch on, who do all the stalls and do all that, and they are the traders, so they are traders representatives who run Totally Locally with our support. But they were saying they thought it was a really good event last year, mainly because the weather was nice, which helps, but also most of the traders who opened had a better take than they'd had for previous years.
Yeah.
And they therefore were already looking to book for this year, which is what you want. You want the traders to come back in. And we'd also discussed about the 10K. Yes. And again, the 10K, we do all right out of it as a council because it attracts a good turnout. You get a lot of people into the town centre. A lot of the traders don't want to open because it's on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and most people have gone by 1 o'clock. So the traders aren't going to open for that time. But what it does is it's a chance to showcase Chorley to a lot of people who don't normally come into Chorley. So all go, how nice is it here? I will come back and shop here again in the future. Yeah, maybe not today because today I'm here to do running, but I've noticed there's this shop, that shop, the other shop, and I could come back at a different time, and I can also go to that bar, that cafe, or that eating establishment. And what we need to get is that critical mass, which is part of the back to the town centre master plan. The last town centre master plan we had was supposed to remove a lot of the retail from Market Street. It has proven very tenacious in staying there. And therefore, I think we've got to understand what the dynamic of the new area up at the top end of Market Street will have on the rest of the town.
Yeah, Councillor Hilton.
It's just a comment, really. I work in a neighbouring large town and chat to people quite a lot in my work, and quite often comes up, where do you live? Oh, Chorley, and almost unanimously say, oh, we always go to Chorley, it's much nicer than what we've got here. So it's just anecdotal. I won't mention the large town, you can check that on my declarations. But you know what I'm saying. But people do come here.
And that's what we get quite a lot, and therefore, and it's what word of mouth, and that, how do it's having a good reputation for when you have a pleasant experience when you come here. Can you get and that's a bit of a worry about doing the town centre redevelopment, because parking will be a nightmare for the next 2 years. But we've got to get through that, because exactly the same number of spaces are going to be there in 2 years' time. But in the interim, we've got to a major issue about how we get the same number of people coming through the town centre while there's a major development going on.
Any more questions? I just wanted one, just to ask Gail really about cover planning officers. So obviously in the past, because we've had trouble recruiting and the lack of planning officers out there to recruit, because we're getting better at it and we've got younger people coming up through the ranks, have our cover officers reduced the expense on cover officers that we're using from agencies?
We have one agency planner in at the moment, who is largely here to deal with a larger than expected number of planning appeals that we have at the moment, but we are fully staffed in terms of our established roles.
Good.
Which is really good.
Yeah, because it hasn't been such in the past, because of the shortages and yeah, no, that's brilliant.
We are blessed with a very dedicated team here, a very stable team, and you know that's part of, as Councillor Bradley was talking about, its holistic offer in terms of a town centre. It's got to be a holistic offer in terms of a job role as well. So we are very lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've only got one who isn't actually covering a vacancy at the moment, is an additional post.
Right, brilliant, excellent. Is that all the questions? Are we all questioned out? Oh, Councillor Hayden. Okay, so can we note the report and thank the executive members for their attendance and the officers as well, and to agree any actions proposed earlier in the meeting? No, I don't think we have any actions, do we? Pardon? The additional information, if we can put it in, yeah. Okay, so we agree that. Is that okay? Lovely. So item 4 is the performance focused corporate services Q3, pages 25 to 48. Councillor Wilson, who's not here. Yeah. All right. If you can put Councillor Wilson on apologies, because I didn't have that one.
And Caroline's going to present
Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I'm presenting this report on behalf of the Executive Member of Resources. It will provide overview and scrutiny with a performance update on corporate services. So that includes my Directorate of Change and Delivery, and that covers people, policy and partnerships, economic development, communications and visitor economy, but it also covers finance and governance, with the governance service covering audit and risk, democratic services, legal and procurement. The report includes a summary of the budget position for services, and there's an overview of the performance at Q3 of 25-26, and an update on corporate strategy delivery. So I'm just going to go through some of the highlights in the report across the key directorates. In terms of the corporate strategy projects, there are 3 corporate strategy projects across corporate services. One of them's complete, and the other 2 are on track, which is obviously really good news. In terms of the business plan projects, there are 32 across corporate services, and again, 30 of those are rated green or complete. In terms of the things I'd like to highlight, I'll start with the Change and Delivery Directorate, which is mine. There have been some reviews across the Directorate in the last year, and we've done that really to strengthen capacity and capability across the services. So like really sort of like strengthening that sort of like corporate core around data and intelligence and policy and transformation, and making sure that we've got the right skills there. Additionally, we've also moved economic development to a shared service, which was agreed by the Shared Services Joint Committee, and that is proven to be really beneficial in terms of like those shared skills across what was, you know, both the Chorley and South Ribble teams. In terms of communications and visitor economy achievements, As you know, we've got a really ambitious events programme in Chorley, and obviously we've continued to deliver that, including the flower show, which is in its 10th year, and attracted 13,000 visitors for the last event, which is really fantastic. And as a result, we were shortlisted for Lancashire Tourism Awards Small Event Award. We didn't win it, unfortunately, but obviously it's great to be nominated. We did actually, at the awards, we went into the highly commended category as well at the end, where there's a bit of an overall winner. We didn't unfortunately win that as well, but obviously it's great to be really recognised as delivering such a fantastic event in Chorley. And then, as I said, there's other events, Light Up Astley, that attracted around 15,000 visitors. Chorley Live, Watch Your Story Chorley, Winter Wonderland, and obviously the 10K. So a really, really strong events programme. We've actually seen an increase in visitor numbers to Chorley from the latest Steam data. It is reported a year behind, so the figures are for 2024, but there were 3.17 million visitors to Chorley. The majority of those were people visiting for the day. But you'll see that we've been doing some work around our destination management plan, which we developed, and we've got a new brand around the best of Lancashire all in one place, and that is really helping us to bring some coherence to what Chorley has to offer, and I'm sure we'll see the impact of that again in future years around visitor numbers. We've also strengthened our communication strategy. We're obviously delivering a positive Making It Happen campaign as part of that, which is, obviously seeing increased engagement across our social media channels. We've had 9 million views across our social media. So we're really seeing that increased engagement. What I will highlight, just in terms of some of the indicators, is just around the Astley visitor numbers, which are slightly off track in terms of our target. As you know, there's some restoration works ongoing at the moment with the West Wing, which has obviously impacted that somewhat because there's parts of the building closed off. But obviously we are continuing to promote Astley Hall, and we found other ways obviously to try and keep visitors engaged by moving some of our engagement and interactions into the information centre and the shop, and we'll be looking when we open in April to extend our opening hours as well, because that has had a bit of an impact as well in terms of visitor numbers. Just in terms of economic development achievements, we've obviously delivered the UK SPF grant programme. So we've awarded around about 30 grants to businesses, and that's really helping them to grow, and has actually helped to contribute to the creation of new jobs. So we're seeing around 22 new jobs being created through that business support. We are sponsoring business awards. We've sponsored business awards in Chorley, and there were 14 Chorley businesses recognised, and we obviously sponsor those awards because it really helps to put Chorley on the map really, and helps to raise the profile of the borough in terms of our excellent businesses. We obviously engage with businesses. We've had 338 engagements with local businesses. 90 have received direct support from the council, so that's advice and being able to access obviously our training and development programmes. There was a careers expo that was delivered with around about 200 people attending, and we've had business breakfasts as well, which are really popular and a really good way for us to engage with businesses and understand what some of their challenges are, which obviously helps us to shape our future economic programmes. The economic strategy is one of our business plan projects. It does require a refresh. It is currently on amber at the moment. It has been drafted, but we have committed to forming a new economic partnership, which has met twice. And what we want is for that partnership to have a real instrumental role in shaping that economic strategy and helping to drive it forward, which is why there's been a bit of a delay in progressing that because obviously we want that input. And then just in terms of the other service within my directorate, people, policy and partnerships, we have responsibility for developing the corporate strategy, which obviously we've now developed for 2026. We also have a Chorley and South Ribble partnership, which brings together partners from across police, fire, voluntary and community sector, and that really sort of like helps us with that collaboration. And we refreshed our partnership strategy as well in 2025. And we've also refreshed our equality objectives as well as a team, which is a public sector equality duty and something that we have to do. You'll be aware that we had a local government association peer challenge here at Chorley. Absolutely fantastic feedback received from the peer team who visited us. They actually came and did, so that happened in May 2025, but they came and did a revisit very recently in February. And we've just had the draft report through from that. And again, you know, they're really like, gave positive feedback around the progress that we've made on some of the recommendations that they suggested. But, you know, they said that we had a really positive culture here at the council, and they really enjoyed spending time like talking to our officers and members. And also we've seen some improvement around our sickness absence as well, and this is mainly because we've put a lot of effort into like resolving some of those long-term cases that were really impacting the figures. So that's just a bit of an overview in terms of the Change and Delivery Directorate. In terms of governance, Democratic Services obviously delivered the election and the by-elections in Buckshaw and Whittle ward. In terms of the audit and risk team, there is a business plan project specifically around refreshing that risk management matrix, but that's currently on hold just to sort of like consider the impact of local government reorganisation and how we might obviously refresh our risk management approach. But some positives, particularly around sort of like mental first aiders. So we've actually, this is something that the health and safety team have introduced. And I think we've got around 22 staff who've done the training on that. And this is a volunteer role. So they've put themselves forward into that role. And this is around supporting staff wellbeing in relation to mental health. And I think it's a really positive like initiative that's been introduced. Our legal and governance service have obviously refreshed the procurement strategy and social value policy. You'll see from our indicators that chief executive complaint responses are above target in terms of us actively responding to those. We've also seen positive results around our bookings for the Lancastrian, which is obviously a fantastic venue for people to hold events. So I think we've had around 52 bookings at the Lancastrian. Just in terms of the audits, obviously we do continue to do a lot of internal audits, which results in a lot of service recommendations, and they're obviously taken forward to be implemented. There was a bit of a delay in taking forward some of those audit plans, and I understand that was because we had some vacancies in the service. We are actually now at full capacity again within the service, so obviously we'll look to progress those and actively monitor them, and as well with the audit actions and then being implemented by services. In terms of near miss reporting, you'll see from the indicator that this is below target. But the health and safety team have spent a lot of time like improving like the reporting processes to try and encourage more reporting. We have seen sort of like typically low reporting at Chorley, but we aim to try and achieve 7 reports of near misses a month, and we are seeing incremental improvements in that reporting. You know, and we want to achieve those higher numbers because it really helps us to learn from those near misses, obviously to avoid any future accidents. And then just finally touching on the finance service. So they have delivered the International Financial Reporting Standards project, and that's ensured that Chorley Council's lease arrangements have been identified, reviewed, and they've correctly reflected in the 2024-25 Statement of Accounts. There's also been a joint procurement exercise with South Ribble and Preston, whereby Lloyds Banking Group were appointed to provide merchant acquiring services to the council. The team have also delivered another set of unqualified accounts. You will see, obviously, from the indicators that the supplier payments within 30 days is slightly off track. I have been provided with some up-to-date information for February, and we are now at 95.79%. So we are now on track, which is obviously like really good news. And then just touching, I think, really on the sort of like directorate budget position, I don't think there's a huge amount of concern there. A lot of the underspends do relate to staffing, but those positions, since obviously the time of reporting, have either been filled or we're actively recruiting to those roles. We've seen an underspend on our events programme, particularly around the flower show, which is obviously like really positive, and we've seen some greater income levels as well from that event. And I think I touched a little bit on the visitor numbers for Astley in terms of like budgets. We are seeing a little bit of an underspend there in relation to sort of like admissions and sort of spend in the shop, but there is a lot of work. So we've recently pulled together a new business development team that is very much focused on that commerciality of our assets, and they're doing a lot of work now to implement processes to get our weddings back up and running at Astley, which will be really positive for the site. We've got new items like in our gift shop, like and we're seeing like obviously an increase like in sales. If you want to go and get new dog leads and things like that, that seems to be like a new line that we've introduced in the shop, and it's very, very popular, attracting like our sales from our dog walkers. So there's a lot of like work going on to obviously address like, you know, some of those possible sort of like areas of concern, but as I said, I don't think they're too much to be concerned about because we are making progress. So I think that's really a summary.
That is a vast amount of
Sorry, yes,
information
I know.
you have to
I'll do that
cover. Not
quite
what you
quickly.
say, no, just amount of information you've got to cover there, and it sounds mostly positive. Councillor Bradley.
And despite sending me a briefing note, Caroline found out an hour ago she was doing that, not me, and that's the reason why. Imagine I'd have been here all night. A couple of points to add to that, and it was very exhaustive and well done, Caroline. Really good. The only one I had an issue with, and we discussed it at length at leader brief, didn't we, around the one around near misses. Yes. Because the fact that more near misses is a good measure, I have a bit of a fundamental issue about, because you can look at it both ways, can't you? So, you know, I come from construction, the fewer near misses you have, the better it is. But I understand the point that Caroline makes and the team make, and you pay your money, it takes your choice. But the fact that we are recording them, logging them and doing something about them and learning from them, I think is very important. So, but yeah, and as a summary, because of all the hard work's been done, there's a few measures that are off track. We know why they're off track. We're doing something about them, and it's our job now to get those ones that are off track back on track. But most of them are pretty close to it. I think the Astley thing as well is a bit of a change of staffing down there as well going on, which will help that as well, because we've repurposed some of that and refocused it. Particularly, and also pay credit to the events team, the fact that they have come under a lot of pressure on their budget that they have turned around, and that's really good for us as a council, particularly going forward in the next few years. So, yeah, thank you, Chair.
I suppose it's a good time to do all the changing around Astley Hall if it's not completely open, and then when it is completely open, everybody's on target. So, yeah, that would be good. Councillor Green?
Thanks, Chair. One of the things I think brilliant about Chorley is all the events we put on. It is absolutely fantastic. I don't know many places that do what we do. You know, they might put on a flower show and that's their big thing for a year, but we do all the Chorley Live and the Santa Dash and all the 10K. It's absolutely fantastic. But there's one thing I think we might be missing, just a little bit of a trick in trying to advertise ourselves a little bit. And I've mentioned this before, is on our website. So I do think our website could be a little bit more striking about what Chorley does, given the amount of people that come through the Chorley website. So when you look at it, the very front top of it is like red, and it's all a bit bland. I mean, you've got all of the first drop-down bits of the services, which is fine. But in terms of banging the drum about Chorley, it goes on to check out Chorley. But actually, it's sort of okay, but I think we could have a bit more of a story about what's on in Chorley. And I did a little, before I came in today, I went to ChatGPT and said, why should you come to Chorley? And it gave me a fantastic summary about all the various things we could do. And I think if we had sort of almost like, and the other thing we're missing is we haven't got the strapline. Actually, I can't see on our website where the best of Lancashire in one place. We've got the making it happen in Chorley, which is brilliant. But I also think we should have a section saying best of Lancashire in one place, and then almost have that little summary about why should you come to Chorley. I can send you the ChatGPT thing. I did. It was really interesting, and I thought we'd get something like that. And then you still got your link out to check out Chorley. So I think we could bang our drum a bit more. And also in terms of banging our drum a bit more, we've got the town of culture we're trying to go for, and again that's not mentioned on the website. So again, I think maybe it's something like why we think we deserve it, and what we're going to be doing to try and bang the drum on that. So I think there's a little bit we could do. I still think it's not a poor website by any means, but I do think it could be made a lot sharper for pushing the visitor numbers.
Yeah, I think possibly the website's very utility because we're a council and not sales, if you know what I mean.
I think we could do
You
that.
could flash across a couple of dog leads on the front, like pop-ups and all sorts. I think you could do a bomb on things like that. Go on, Councillor Bradley.
Right, so yeah, I just opened it up to have a little look at it. I go on lots of council websites, mainly to find people, and not in a dating website kind of way, but just find email. It is very utilitarian, isn't it? You go on, it's lots of logos, and if you want this, click on here. If you want this, it needs a bit of jazzing, and the point of the jazzing is the choose Chorley one, but the checkout Chorley. Checkout Chorley is buried down the bottom, and it's about, I think it's that initial. And what are we here to do? Now, the previous discussions have been that Checkout Chorley is the visitor bit, the website, and this is the difference between Caroline and the events people and the comms people and the ASIMCARN functioning bit, which is where you go to pay your council tax bit, yeah? To go to where you pay your council tax, that is what you want probably to say, yeah, click on here and pay your council tax. So I think it is a discussion. You sent it to us before, Russ, I forwarded it on. I think there is this dichotomy between the two approaches, isn't there? And I think your area is one strand of that. ASIM would go, we don't want to confuse people who want to come on and pay their whatever it is or complain about the fact the bin hasn't been collected by saying, come to Chorley, isn't it brilliant? Because they're ringing up going, no, it bloody isn't, because I haven't got my bin emptied this week. So it's about having that balance.
But still, I still have
I know, and I mean you can,
best of Lancashire,
but that's the last discussion we had, and it's not moved on from that.
Just to comment on that, I think...
I don't think...
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, just to come in on that, obviously with the Checkout Chorley website, having all our tourism-related activity in one site, it really helps us to track who's visiting that site, and to obviously, in terms of like our events, we do tend to have separate micro-sites as well for the events, because that as well helps us to track who's viewing it, if people sign up, to anything that's on that website. Again, it helps us to be able to target those people, and we create that audience of people who have been interested, in our events or who've attended like our events. So it helps like with that direct marketing. Obviously we can look at, maybe moving up the Checkout Chorley on the corporate website. But I do think having that separate website and those micro-sites for events, and it helps us as well with the social media element as well, because we tend to create separate social media accounts as well for some of our events, because that really helps in tracking.
So maybe even on that Checkout Chorley then, if we're in control of that, are we, the Checkout?
Yes,
Chorley?
yeah, that's council.
So maybe, again, when I just quickly went on to it, I didn't see that our strapline, I might have missed that.
It doesn't.
Yeah, so I think, we're pushing a lot of effort on that. And likewise, just in terms of, it's very much block about the various bits we've got in there. Yeah, as opposed to saying, why would you come to Chorley? This is the and then there's all the links to the various sort of Ashley Hall and all that sort of stuff. So I do think we're missing we could add a bit more onto that side of things.
Through you, Chair, noted, and I'll take it away.
Yeah.
Because it's both our job to that away.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll look
we'll
at it.
take that
All
on.
right.
Councillor Singh, did you want to just jump in on that?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there, Councillor Green, obviously, but I also understand where Councillor Bradley's coming from. You've got to remember, obviously, the people that, for example, if you pay your council tax bill, if you're on your lunch break, you just want to get on that website, pay it, and get off it. You don't want to spend your time with things popping up in the middle of the screen and you're getting frustrated, because that's just going to lead to bad service then, customer service.
So I can
Obviously, you've got to have both strands there. You've got to balance it out. So you understand where
I can get that bit on that bit, but then just to diverse to go on to the checkout Chorley bit, I think that maybe on the side we can maybe do a bit on the checkout Chorley bit.
There's a way of it being more dynamic and it doing everything or more for everybody and doing that. So I think there are sites you go on that does that. So I think it's something we'll investigate.
I think if we're separating it though, directing people to check out surely should be right at the top of the list instead of
it would say,
the
are
bottom
you
of the
here
list.
to go out somewhere in Chorley? Click here, and then it takes you to where to check out Chorley.
Yeah.
What you're saying is it should have a strap line, certainly on the check out Chorley one, but it should also probably have a strap line on the top of here as well.
Yeah.
Just as an entry point, because what you've got is food
Yeah.
waste collection starting on the 30th of April, which is great, but that's not the be all and end all to most people. If you
No,
think
I
of
mean,
it.
you've got, if you was to say, and I doubt it's 50-50, but if you've got 50% of the people from the outside of Chorley looking in, they want to see what to do. They're seeing utility that the other 50% of the population is looking for, which is paying a bill. But if it's got a splash at the top and they realise they're not in the right place, they need to go into the checkout Chorley. It needs to be at the top, yeah.
Take it away. There are greater minds in this council than us to do this.
You need a nice new graphic designer, and I've just got one qualified just in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
Going home from uni.
Register that as a conflict of interest.
It would be if you applied, yeah, definitely. It would now. Damn, just ruined the chances. Councillor Hayden.
Just a comment about the visitor numbers to Astley Hall, whether or not the target should have been readjusted downwards because you knew that it was going to close for a period of time because of the the work that was ongoing. So that we shouldn't have been expecting that many number of visitors anyway. So I just wondered whether or not you could have had a more accurate target rather than missing that target by so much.
yeah,
It's been read, hasn't it?
yeah, it has, yeah,
For
yeah.
that. So it would just be a more realistic.
Although it
picture.
gives them a name once it's reopened, to give it a push, to build up the numbers, to get it up to, I don't know when it's going to fully reopen. When does it all finish?
Well, the hall obviously reopens in April because we always shut anyway, like during the winter period, because obviously we have to, make sure that all the collection is, looked after.
Yeah.
So we always shut for a period of time anyway, and it reopens in April. But when we reopen, we're looking at obviously extending the opening hours, and we're looking at how, as I said, some of the other aspects of the complex will link to what we're doing at the hall. So like I said, making more of the information centre and the shop as well to try and
Well, that'll all
encourage people
fall
to
in
attend.
next year's figures though, won't it now?
What's that, sorry?
It all falls into next year's figures now then, because April.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. But it'll be a flurry next year. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chair. Just two other quick ones. Just on the local integrated governance one, you mentioned about the LGA review. I just think we could, again, have we got plans to bang our drum about that? Because I think, from what I've, obviously a number of us are lucky enough to be part of that, and it was a privilege to be part of it. But I understand what the feedback that's come out has been very, very good, actually. So are we going to do any comms about, the fact that we've been independently audited, and really we've come out, there's little bits where we can, polish and improve, but we've come out in really good shape on that. So I just wonder whether we've got some comms or to try and push out that.
It's not traditional to do it.
Is it right?
Because this is a bit of an internal LGA thing. We
Yeah.
can't, there's nothing to say you can't do it. Whether it's of interest to residents, we can put a story out there, but if somebody runs with it, they run with it. You know what I mean? Yeah, we can put something out, it's not a problem. Well, what's your
I was just going to say, like, it is more of a professional thing, isn't it, like, for the sector. So obviously when they came and did the main review, we did put something out on our LinkedIn to say, obviously, that we had been reviewed and it was really positive. The report goes on the council's website because that is a requirement of the LGA, and it also goes on the LGA website as well. So it's published publicly for people to see. So that includes the main report, the action plan that the council developed, and obviously like our progress around that action plan, and the revisit report as well. So it is out there in the public domain for people to see.
Given where we are, I think you're right, we could maybe do something. So I think tell her
Okay.
see if we could do something if comms think it's a flyer, if that's all right. So when you go to Sideswell and you do give them a clean bill of health, do they put it on the local, in the local paper saying it's all right, Russ has been round and checked that there's no leaks? You're on your website, exactly the same thing.
We do put it on our website as well. The other question I just got, just in terms of going back to near miss reporting, funny enough, because obviously it's my background, sort of safety side of things. It was funny if I was reading an article about this sort of very thing about trying to find near misses, as opposed to sometimes stopping back and going, actually we're not getting any accidents, or people are not reporting it. So actually, what are we doing well that's actually we're not seeing incidents as well? And sometimes that bit where you actually stand back and go, actually, what are we doing well? What are we really, and trying to understand that to make sure we can, use that good learning going forward, rather than trying to seek bad things. Actually go, actually, we're not getting anything wrong, and we must be doing something right. And what is that we're doing right, and then extrapolate that.
You referred to that when you said about what we're doing to prompt near miss reporting, and also to assess tasks, like you said, for what they're doing well as well, to report good practice as well as just bad practice.
Well, I was just going to say, it's around those processes, isn't it? And really like supporting like our officers in being able to do it easily. And that's what the health and safety team have spent a lot of time on, making it much easier, digitising like the processes as well. And so, I think that will help in trying to increase. And as well, like in terms of just like our sort of like internal management team meetings, the team come and remind us and report as well on, how many accidents or near misses have been like across directorates. I can talk about, some of the specifics of that and what's happened. So, that learning and sharing and that conversation does happen internally.
Somebody said, put a load of anti-slip mats around the building, and your slips have gone back. But it's actually understanding, going, actually, because somebody's done that, we've got a benefit. So it's trying to make sure that when you put something in place, you actually realise the benefit you've actually got from it.
So, and again, my experience of doing things like that is like if it's not safe, don't do it. But then if it is safe, can it be done better? And the way that we do it in construction is designing out risk. So design out risk. So rather than thinking about which ladder you use, how can we do it without using a ladder, that kind of stuff. I don't know if we have that within the council, that ability to say, how do we design out and how do we process out some of those risks. I think it's more around a more traditional near miss reporting regime we've got, but maybe that kind of approach to a different programme, maybe in one or two particular directorates, and I'm thinking street scene would be the obvious place for doing it, and some of the more hands-on operations where you basically look at what you're doing, and it's everybody's responsibility to look at what they're doing and think, can I do this in a different way that would make it safer? Some of those will be practical, some will be unpractical, but it's coming up with those ideas, isn't it? Because every time I'm doing this, there's a risk that's going to happen, and the water and gas industries particularly are full of that kind of stuff because they are quite dangerous.
Just on that, I was just going to say, it will feed into the risk management process. So obviously where things have been identified that perhaps need to be improved in terms of like whether it was something that happened at an event or, you know, something like that happened as part of service delivery, that should be discussed and captured and then obviously fed into our risk management process and identifying like those controls so it, you know, it's joined up.
And presumably within that process, you've got some opportunity for employees to feed in what they think they might need, a piece of PPE, a piece of equipment, a new ladder, like you were saying. Yeah, and those purchases are what you're saying, the preemptive bit about there won't be a near miss because we made these purchases of these items which actually prevented those types of accidents happening. Presumably that's already within health and safety checks.
Yeah, so the health and
asking-
safety team, obviously if there was a near miss or an accident, there's a report, isn't there, that's produced which would highlight what's happened, why has it happened, what obviously needs to be done to make sure it doesn't happen again. And obviously they'll work with, you know, the service, like where that's happened to consider, like, you know, putting those, you know, resolutions like in place. So yeah, it's, you know, it's a process.
Yeah, I was thinking more the proactive employee saying, oh, can I have a new one of these because now they're designed better and it's going to make my job easier, but it's also going to make it safer. So just those items coming through from the ground root, you know, the grassroots. But I presume that's all part of the process. Have we got any more questions? Yeah, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you again. Some really, really fantastic work going on with the teams. I know you mentioned, Caroline, about internal audit and you talked about the plans that haven't been completed and that's to do with capacity in the department and that will improve. And that's good to see because we are at 0% on. So we're saying that none of the audit plans are completed for this year to date. But the 1-2 down from that is around the percentage of agreed actions implemented by management. So these are where the plans are completed, management have agreed actions, and we are way off those being implemented. And obviously there are improvements for the services, aren't they? What we can't tell from this is what the risk of those are or how overdue they are. But it has been a continual theme that we've seen through other meetings as well. And we've had a number of conversations with internal audit about how we try and get some of the management teams to actually just focus on some of these improvements and get them underway. I don't know if you want to say, because obviously that 64% is an average, so there will be some better than others departments. I'm just wondering what the thoughts are on how we actually get the management teams to focus on some of those improvements and reduce some of the risk that we're carrying. Discuss.
I mean, obviously that it's not my area, it doesn't fall within my directorate, but having spoken to our head of audit and risk, you know, she's assured me that the team are actively working, obviously with managers to make sure that those actions are implemented. And obviously, you know, this is reported, isn't it, like sort of behind. So I know that there has been improvements. Like in that figure, I haven't actually got the figure, but I know that the performance has improved, and that is because the audit team, as I said, now at full capacity and are really able to start working like with managers to address like some of those management actions. I can, you know, try and get some up-to-date figures in terms of performance if that would help.
I think that would be helpful. So it may be that maybe they just haven't recorded that they're done, and it depends on the system and how they've done that. But we have seen themes working with where the actions just haven't been completed and the deadlines have been stretched, etc. for it. So I'm interested to understand how we can get that anywhere near that 90% figure for that target. But thank you.
Yeah, I just got a query on elections, because obviously our election teams were, for a brief moment, stood down and then put back onto high alert. Is everything still ticking along
They didn't stand
as
down.
if we weren't stood down?
They didn't stand down.
We didn't
because
stand down,
they
right, okay.
They didn't know that until the legal challenge and all the rest of it
Right.
that there was. So they carried on effectively.
So we didn't create a risk.
So, no, and to be fair, and I was listening to something on the radio the other week and they were talking to a guy who was a representative of the Electoral Officers Society, whatever they're called, who said the same, that most councils carried on. The one thing they didn't do was order things like postal vote packs and all that.
Yeah.
What they did was they had orders on place, which they held
Yeah.
pending a decision. So I would say that Catherine and the team weren't exactly enamoured with the fact that they were turned on and turned off, but they didn't stop thinking, oh, that's it, we can put our feet up, we're going on holiday, nothing's happening this year. What they did was they carried on what they could get arranged.
Yeah.
And I think really there was no major flap, because I was here the day that they announced the news, and I said, are they going crazy? No, because they expected that something might happen like this.
Yeah.
They have to. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to cover every eventuality. The risk now is the demand across the whole sector for all that stuff to be done quickly. So you've got a lot of extra councils now all wanting extra paperwork and stuff, which they previously. Now, it's the postal votes that's mainly the issue. The rest of the stuff we've got time and space to do.
Yeah.
From what I understand, therefore, it's a concern, but it's not really a massive risk.
No, that's good that we didn't create a risk of our own by standing down.
No,
So that's good.
and that was the advice from the centre as well, that not to do that. So, to proceed, but don't spend money that you don't have to spend until you know for definite.
Yeah, excellent. Councillor Singh?
Thank you. I think it's a great report and very well presented tonight, Caroline. Thank you. Maybe we'll take some notes there, Councillor Bradley. Just a couple of quick ones. Just a couple of quick questions. Agenda page 38. It's nice to see, obviously, the overall employment rate is gone up, and it's better than last time. It's better than the target that we have for the regional average. But on the opposite side, we've got the needs, which is getting better, it seems. Is there anything we can do as councillors to obviously help improve that?
Yes, there is, in my view, which is to carry on supporting all the stuff that we've been doing. I had my portfolio team meeting before this, which is about economic development, regeneration and what have you. There's a major risk now because we're going into the new year. UKSPF money's dropped, so some of the interventions we've been doing will be removed, but we've kick-started a lot of programmes which will carry on into next year, even though the money's dried up from central government is going through the CCA. It's a priority not just for us, but also for the wider Lancashire and the wider North West region. So some of the stuff that we're doing is aligned to stuff that other people are doing. The fact that there's a trend now to get better is to maintain that trend. So what we've all got to do is not take our eye off the ball and think, oh, it's getting a bit better now, and it's getting almost to target, and then go, right, let's stop worrying about this now. We've got to deal with it. And I think what we found, and I said this way back, is when we looked at the analysis of what the problem was, it's not just a case of putting on more training courses or getting people in to rewrite the CV. A lot of these people are disengaged fully from normal operations in life, and therefore it's that one-to-one personal contact, and that's what's been happening. And I think that's paying dividends now, because one or two people are bringing those down by those small percentage points, and we've got to keep doing that work, because in September or whenever there's going to be a whole new cohort of NEETs coming out of schools, and in June and July, and some of them aren't even in school now, so it's happening now. We've got to do it constantly. So, and I'm concerned with the way that money's going to the CCA, and that's something that'll be lost in surely. But we'll work out how we do it, because we've all put a lot of time and effort into doing it, and the group is our group is very concerned about it. It's debated ad infinitum, and we've got to keep doing what appears to be working, but accept that everyone's an individual, unique case.
Is there any feedback on whether the cohort that's going to come next, as opposed to the one that we've got now, is going to be any different from having more school time, more attention time, rather than being locked in the bedroom?
No,
COVID time.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything. It's possibly in a conversation we could have with county officers, because they have more insight, the schools teams.
Right.
The last conversation we had, and I'm looking at Caroline, that when the schools officers came to this partnership, they were concerned that no, it wasn't going to get a lot better, because their view was this is going to be required for years to come, because it's almost a societal issue now.
So it's not a COVID?
It's partly COVID, but COVID just a bit like a few things with COVID, it sort of reinforced a trend anyway. And as we're all aware, there's a trend at the moment to exclusions from school, non-attendance at school, home parenting. And while they don't specifically cause that, it allows some people who really should be being put in a situation where they can learn to not be in a situation where they can learn or be educated. And that's the risk. So their view was it's not going to get massively better anytime soon.
Okay.
And if Margaret France was here, she'd point, as I think it was said the other day, about school readiness. You know, school readiness
Yeah,
is
the
a
other end.
direct correlation to the other end of it. So
Yeah.
you've got to start this work with 3 or 4 year olds or even 2-year-olds, not 15, 16-year-olds. So, and I agree with her as well. And it's very hard to link cause and effect in that way. But the more you do there, it's got to have a benefit.
Got to,
there.
yeah. Sorry, I hijacked your question there. Carry on.
Just a little bit of narrative in the performance report around needs. So obviously the council's been doing a lot of work with partners to try and improve. And you will actually see, when you look at the numbers, we are seeing a bit of a reduction in needs. Obviously, we're still one of the highest, obviously, in Lancashire. But, you know, that reduction, it's positive. And I think, you know, we're attributing that to that work that the council's doing, whereby, you know, it's an outreach initiative, like where we're looking to sort of like provide like guidance, and I think we're seeing some incremental reduction, and you know, assuming we continue to you know go in that direction, I think that's positive.
So just, that's funny, for on the agenda for item 5, I was going to talk about needs. Just, I'm trying to do a bit, I'm trying, funny enough, I met Tom from First Kicks the other day. I'm trying to do something in Buckshaw regarding needs. But I don't have the full picture as a member. I just wonder whether we could have just a suggestion, whether we could have a members learning brief on the strategy and the stuff you're doing, because then that would allow me to have a bigger picture and where I could dovetail into those bits and from a council point of view help, you know, and push what the council's doing on. So my request from this would be if we could have a members training session on it.
I could put that through Matthew, Paul.
Ben.
Ben. Right. Through my colleague here.
Not rude.
Sorry, no, I know it's not rude. No. But that might take time. So if you're looking for a quicker answer, you might be better linking into one of the officers directly first, because that'll take time to set up and put together. Yeah. Councillor Brown, is that building on Arjun's question? Go on.
Yes, it's to do with needs. So we've talked about the outreach service and the impact that's had, and it's absolutely fantastic that we're seeing that improvement. And it stops in March because of the funding that you've just talked about, I think, from what I've read. So I'm wondering, I know the blurb in agenda item 5, actually, as we're crossing over a little bit, aren't we, talks about some of the things that we could do, but it actually really says there is a direct correlation in the improvement to that outreach service that we've got. So my question is, how do we cover that risk? Have we looked at other ways of trying to find it if there is funding that has stopped? How much did it cost? Because this is a key thing for us to help these young people into education or work. So I'm really concerned about reading that it stops in a few weeks after we've just said how great it is. What are we doing about it?
I believe planning made a lot of money this week.
Where does it say it stops?
It's in the
agenda item 5.
Yeah,
It
right.
says that service stops in March.
Where?
it's in the narrative.
Specifically on the
Hang on a
page.
second.
You don't have page numbers on these, do they? Page 58.
Page 58 to 59.
Where does it say it? Action plan.
In
sorry.
the action plan, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it actually does say March 26th somewhere. I've read it, but I can't see it at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the first paragraph, in the second line.
Yeah, very first top. Yes,
Commission's
yeah, that's right.
service is scheduled to end in March 2026.
After which support for
First
young
line.
people will
Why can't I
continue.
read?
Page 59.
All right, sorry, yes, it's a bit above, so it's not in the
Yeah,
plan.
some
Some young
young
people
people.
currently supported by the NEAT outreach and guidance service remain NEAT until started college, yeah. The commission service is scheduled to end yeah. So that's that specific service, but there are other services. It says in the action plan there are other services going on because some of this is being picked up by the CCA through the skills, whatever it's called, thing, isn't it? Caroline, you weren't at the CCA meeting when the briefing from, you know, the briefing they got from Michelle Lottie-Jones, that first economic partnership.
Yeah.
So we are, yeah, we are hoping that we can either leave the money in to carry it on from the CCA, or we put some money in and they put some money in to do that. But there are about 3 or 4 different schemes going on. So some of these are our schemes, some of them are county schemes, and we have to understand what's doing what. If they can just shift over because the money was coming to us and now it's going to them, that to me would be the preferred route. I'm not aware of that. I think that's,
Yeah.
I don't know who's written that. I think it's right in that the current scheme is ending, but I understood there was discussions going on about substituting, pivoting, changing bit around.
I thought when you talked about SPF funding reducing that was related to those
It
two.
could be, but that money effectively has been rolled up into what's going to the CCA. So our view, and I've said this to Michelle Lottie-Jones, who's in charge of skills for the CCA and for the County Council, is, are you going to do something different in Chorley, or can we carry on doing what we're doing? Her exact words were, our preferred option is to carry on doing what you're doing, because it's working.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I haven't seen the money, and we're in February now, and it starts in April, so we probably need to be having that conversation, don't we?
I think if we put that down as an action point that will come back
You're right.
later as a
Thank you.
response in a mini report
Yeah.
of
And
how
it's
it's
this
going to
patchwork
continue.
quilt
Yeah,
effect,
I
lots of
think
people
if-
doing different things.
Yeah, if you look at the bottom of page 59, the most powerful statement in there, which is really powerful for me, is that of 36 young people, it's a very bottom paragraph,
18
supported
have
by the
moved.
service,
Yeah.
18 have moved into education and
Yeah.
employment. That's fantastic. We need to continue
If
that
they
service
don't
on
drop,
somehow.
if they don't drop out is the big question, and that's the next problem. But that's
We're giving them
stage
that start, aren't
Yeah.
we?
We are.
And that
And-
access.
and that's what I said earlier on, which is what Caroline repeated was that's that individual intervention, and that's what we want to see in Chorley, and we need to see what the fleshed out scheme looks like from the county or the CCA. It should be, because the CCA effectively works for all of us, even though we don't have I sit on the board, but I don't have a vote on it. But the plan says to deal with needs in exactly that way. So we'll find out. Sorry.
I'll keep it brief because I know obviously we're dragging along. Agenda page 39, it's nice to see the awarded grants and funding to up to 30 businesses across the borough. Obviously, given Monday's meeting of the council tax freeze, we asked, and Councillor Wilson gave us reassurance that funding for local businesses and organisations shall continue. So it's nice to see 30 businesses have been given support throughout the borough. The next paragraph following on, 9 million impressions across Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. It's definitely been noted. I know myself, I see it. I'm sure the councillors see it on Facebook all over. I see it all over, and it's all positive news, it sounds, so it's good. That's great to see. And here, my last question, just a very quick question. Agenda page 46. The percentage of complaints to the MP responded within 10 working days. I'm assuming that is not just Sir Lindsay Hoyle, but it's also Paul Foster as well, seeing as though...
Yeah, that's all MPs' letters. Some of them are vexatious though, Chair, in my opinion. They're only writing to us because they can't answer the question, and they know we can't answer the question, but they write to us on something they've done.
As long as we keep them on the toes and
Yeah.
make sure they're doing what they
I get
promised,
some ridiculous letters from MPs,
Thank you.
but the Chief Executive deals with them very well.
Do we have any more questions? No, I think we've exhausted you all now. So let me me just jump for 4. Yeah, so we are noting the report and thanking the executive member for the attendance and the officers, obviously, and to agree any actions proposed earlier in the meeting. So we had that carry forward, which started with you and ended with Councillor Brown, just to come back on the future of the NEATS funding, I think, is briefly. So if we can make sure that's in. But we note the attendance and thank everybody for coming and answering all those questions. And an excellent report. Yeah, brilliant. Hang on. So we're noting that. We're agreeing the actions, yeah. And the date of the next meeting is the 25th of June. Thank you for coming.
Needs went across the 2, that's what makes it strange.
Ready for a meeting?
Hello?
Ready for a meeting?
Yeah. Oh dear.
That's what we're here to do, though. Question.
It is? Yeah, not closed down before we finish. Must do better. Yeah. So, sorry about that interruption, everybody who's listening. Item 5 is Chorley Quarter 3 Performance Monitoring Report, which is 49 to 94. Who's covering for Councillor Wilson?
To be fair, Chair, I think most of it we've covered.
Okay.
On the previous item.
Yeah.
I think, Chair, most of it's been covered under previous items. Happy to take questions on it. I think the exhaustive report we heard before from Caroline covered most of these things. This is just the latest update. If you look at the corporate strategy indicators, most of them are agreeing that the ones that are amber are probably the ones that were previously amber, or supplier payments within 30 days, all that kind of stuff. Some of the recycling rates, etc. And therefore, I think the best way is to obviously the infrastructure for weekly food collections. We're starting late, but only slightly late, and that's because of the caddy supply, although they're here earlier now than they said they were going to be. So it was going to be delayed, then it wasn't, and then you know what I mean. So we've stuck to a date. Even though the stuff's been delivered earlier, we're going to carry on to the date we've published, and that's going out, and the caddies are going out. All Seasons refurbishment, that's saying it's delayed because there was a slow start, but work is being done alongside each other, so it's in a recovery phase, and that will happen. We've discussed NEATS, which is obviously a red indicator, but only just. And aside from that, Chair, I don't think there's much else really to report that's different than what we've already discussed at a fairly exhaustive length. So
Thanks,
happy to take questions.
Councillor Bradley. Do we have any questions specifically about this report? Councillor Green?
Yeah, two quick ones. Two quick ones. Just in terms of antisocial behaviour, I think just one other point is in terms of a positive thing from in terms of what the council does. So we've had quite a significant antisocial behaviour issue from a number of residents in Buckshaw, and through the public protection officer James Walker was very engaged in terms of working with the police and housing association. So that's another thing that that you guys do. You pull together other stakeholders. So again, that's a positive from what you've done. So and James needs a big pat on the back from what he does, because that's made him transformed the lives of the people that were affected by that social behaviour there. So that's just a positive on that one. And then obviously just on the cost of living plan, obviously the 0% increase in, well, no increase in council tax obviously helps that situation as well.
Okay, no teacher, but just on the ASB, is down generally across the whole borough, which is good. Touch wood, and fingers crossed. Some of that will be weather impacted, and this was mentioned last night at the town centre, because most of the ASB takes place in the town centre, to be honest with you, and therefore we have to guard against sort of resting on our laurels. But the police chief inspector was at the town team meeting last night and urged that if anybody sees any spikes in ASB, that they get in touch with the police, and he gave his contact details and all the rest of it to those people there, and that covers the whole ward. That's not just the town centre. So if you hear of anything, see of anything, please report it.
I just thought it was positive fact, you know, like you got likes of James being proactive and
It's very
engaging
good.
across that. So
If we
yeah,
clone him, we would.
yeah,
Sure.
no, it's very good.
Weather, antisocial behaviour. Fair weather, antisocial
Yeah,
behaviour.
fair
They don't really like getting wet.
There you go, yeah.
Ruins the trainers. Any more questions? Yep, Councillor Singh.
Just a quick one. It mentions in the report, paragraph 24, about the Chorley's voluntary and community sector. Obviously, it shows that we've got 474 volunteers now registered, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But personally, I must admit, before I actually read the report, I didn't know much about it. Is there any way we can obviously push that through social media and advertisement? Because I'm sure we'll get a lot more volunteers, if that's okay.
Yeah, can do. This replaced time credits in it about a year, 18 months ago, so it probably needs a bit of a push out there. Now it's up and running and seems to be functioning. You're right, so I'll raise that, Caroline.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more? No? Okay. So we're noting that report and thanking the executive member for and the Councillor Bradley for answering all the questions. Agreed actions, really, I think probably the one about the social media for
Yeah, if we can just push that.
yeah for the volunteering. Okay.
Good.
Thanks for that. And the next meeting is Thursday, the 25th of June to 2026 at 6:30, which will under a new chair.
Yes, you're disposed.
I'll be kicked out. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I know.